Ladies and gentlemen, we have a breaking news update to get to here in the Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively trial. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of the Rush Hour podcast. And this is a video dedicated to the judge dismissing Justin Baldoni's countersuit against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, a $400 million dismissal as of right now. So what does this mean? Not a lawyer, going to hear from a couple. And as the day goes on, we'll get all of the commentary from all of the folks we've grown to love here. But let's dive into this People magazine article, and the gossip rags will run wild with this story, as it does look like a big win for Blake Lively. Is it, though? The judge granted motions to dismiss Justin Baldoni's lawsuits against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, their publicist, and the New York Times. Now, I was of the belief that the New York Times would be the dismissal we would expect because it's an organization protected by their First Amendment, whatever, right? But let's just dive into the first few pages of this lawsuit. Leanne Newton, our good pal who's been covering this from across the pond, as it were, says all motions to dismiss have been granted, but Wayfair have been invited to amend their complaint. Okay, so is this a good thing? This is like when you're watching a new sport and the crowd makes a noise and you're like, did we win? What? You know, when you're casually watching, you just start clapping and then you find out it was for the wrong team. So Leanne says this was expected and it is a good thing. Again, good for who? I'm assuming she means for Baldoni. Their amended will address all issues and probably bring in newly discovered ones. The whole document is 132 pages. There'll be another thread later, so follow Leanne on Twitter for that. But yeah, so the idea that something was dismissed but open to amend might, just be, maybe it's kind of like when a teacher's like, I'm not going to grade this yet. I'm going to send this back to you, fix some of these issues, you're on the right path. And again, it obviously not exactly that case, but here's what was said. Judge Lehman says, consolidated defendants Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Leslie Sloan, Vision PR, and together with Sloan, the Sloan parties, and the New York Times Company, there's a lot of people here, together with Lively, each moved to dismiss the amended complaint of Wayfair Studios, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, and it ends with us. So they moved to dismiss it. Reynolds, Sloan, and Vision PR additionally moved for an award of attorney's fees. So we knew all of that. We knew they wanted it dismissed, but what we're learning today is that this part has been granted by the judge. Again, Jade says, how is this a good thing? People want to know. We don't understand. Is this good or not? And folks in the comment section are actually saying it's good. Omar Serrato, our friend Omar, who we, by the way, should get back on the channel. Maybe Omar can join us, says, it means Lively lost. Wayfair has to amend on tortious interference. Everything else will remain the same. Granted in part, denied in part. Somebody speak English to me. What does this mean? So let's go back and see what People magazine is saying about it all. So we knew Justin was countersuing her for $400 million, right? We also knew that at least 19 organizations were filing their, filing letters and notices to the judge to say, we don't think Justin should be able to countersue her because of this new law that was put into place to stop retaliatory defamation lawsuits. So if someone's a victim and they want to sue their employer, the employer shouldn't be able to sue them back. Again, that would imply that that there is an actual victim. With this case, it's like, well, we don't even know if Blake Lively's the victim here, right? And a major setback for Justin Baldoni. And again, is it, by the way, this came out as when I'm recording right now within the last half hour. So how People already has this, I'm not really sure. On Monday, June 9th, today, Judge Lehman granted the motion to dismiss the $400 million lawsuit filed by Baldoni and the Wayfair parties against Lively and Reynolds, which alleged extortion and defamation, as well as the $250 million defamation lawsuit against the Times. The judge noted, though, that Baldoni's legal team can still amend the claims for breach of implied covenant and tortious interference with contract if they choose to, with a deadline of June 23rd. So that's next week. We'll have to see how that deadline goes. By the way, I'll be in New York next week. If you want to come to a live stand-up show, I'll be performing at some of the best clubs in the city. So if you want, make sure to follow me on Instagram, dneals, DNEALZ. I'll let you know when and where I'll be. The Wayfair parties have not alleged that Lively is responsible for any statements other than the statements in her complaint, which are privileged, Judge Lehman wrote in the opinion and order filing viewed by People. The Wayfair parties have alleged that Reynolds and publicist Leslie Sloan made additional statements accusing Baldoni of misconduct, and that the Times made additional statements accusing Wayfair parties of engaging in a smear campaign. But the Wayfair parties have not alleged that Reynolds, Sloan's, or the Times would have seriously doubted these statements were true based on the information available to them, as is required for them to be liable for defamation under the applicable law. The judge then added the Wayfair parties' additional claims also fail. Accordingly, the amended complaint must be dismissed in its entirety. Attorneys for Baldoni did not immediately respond to People's request for comment. The Times has long stood behind its coverage of Lively's complaint that was filed in December of 2024, even though we shared that Leanne Newton exposed and others exposed that the metadata suggests that the New York Times had the complaint several months before they even published a story. They didn't give Baldoni the chance to respond. So whether or not they're going to be you're going to be able to sue them, real low quality effort by the New York Times to get Justin Baldoni's side with enough time and effort. A spokesperson for the newspaper previously said our story was meticulously and responsibly reported. Boo! Everyone in the comment section is like, boo, New York Times. Lively recently agreed to drop 2 of her claims against Baldoni, intentional and negligent infliction of emotional distress, in a move her legal team described as a routine part of the litigation process for streamlining. Yes, streamlining the fact that you don't have evidence in March. So then they go back and they go back and they go back. This is very, very interesting nonetheless, even if you believe that this is a good thing for Justin Baldoni. I don't know. The fact that Leanne says it's a good thing and the fact that Omar says it's a good thing, I mean, isn't that wild how complicated the legal system is, that it says he dismissed Baldoni's lawsuit, right? It says it's dismissed, but again, with the chance to amend. So this version is dead, but there is life for the next version, which Baldoni's side has until June 23rd to respond to. So again, we'll have on the afternoon Rush Hour podcast more to this story. It's coming out right now, so we will have to kind of wait and, we'll listen to some of the experts and what they have to say, because I'm sure there will be a lot. A commenter said, wow, I am shocked. This is insane. I can just see her team gloating. The media is about to have a field day. That's probably what Team Lively meant when they told content creators to wait and watch. I wonder how they knew ahead of time. Pure speculation. Omar is saying it's good. I'm confused. I'm sure we'll hear from all the lawyers on YouTube soon. Someone said, I have harassed him with follow-up questions already, but I think he will do a live going through it in a few hours. Yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see. There may be choice words that explain why this is good. Leanne Newton also said it is good, that they knew it was coming and now can refile a better lawsuit. Hope there is new evidence coming up. Yeah, I, for one, wonder if this new evidence will involve the emails from Taylor Swift's team. I still think this is the most interesting part of the lawsuit. Was Blake Lively trying to extort Taylor Swift? That's the claim made by a source who we now know to be Taylor Swift's father. It is yet to be brought into the court other than when the judge kicked it out of the docket. So will this be part of the overall lawsuit where they think that Blake Lively was defaming Justin Baldoni? I don't see how it couldn't be. I don't see how this isn't all connected. Coming up this afternoon, I'm also going to share what Without a Crystal Ball said, which is that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds never actually donated $2 million to the NAACP. Why is this interesting? Well, I'm missing buttons on my shirt. I got my shirt. The breaking news has broken the buttons on my shirt, folks. Come on, hit the like button for gosh sakes. Clavicle for Dave on a Monday. Where do we go from here, right? So either way, fascinating stuff. Judge dismisses, but it ain't over. And it's not even close to over. And if you're sick and tired of this case, join the club, take some Tamiflu, and man up or woman up or whatever, however you want to identify up, and buckle up because we got a lot to get into. This afternoon, I will be covering some other things going on, including the LA riots. And I shouldn't say riots. They're really mostly peaceful protests where people are, saying enough is enough with the sort of authoritarianism that they believe is going on. You can have your opinion, but we're going to share you the news as we see it. It's very difficult, tight needle to thread in our community where I owe it to you to share my opinion. This isn't a unbiased news channel. I'm a guy who has a set of beliefs, and I like to present them to people, and you can agree or disagree. You might think you might not agree with everything, and that's absolutely fine. We don't need to live in an echo chamber, although it is pretty mean out in the internet, and I wouldn't mind if it was a little more echoey. Okay, I wouldn't mind. We love you, Dave. Thank you. Can my mom just give me a hug without it having condition? Whatever. You get the point. So either way, I'll have those stories coming up this afternoon as we fight for due process, not just with Baldoni. Right? And again, this is what got me into trouble with some other content creators, is that when you talk about due process, when you talk about Baldoni being able to defend himself, when you talk about the 5th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, when you talk about our Constitution, you talk about fairness. You talk about innocent till proven guilty, which is why even when we have literal terrorists in our country, they get a trial. It's supposed to be fair. You might say, oh, this Diddy or this Weinstein or all these others, they're so guilty. They get a trial, whether you like them or not. It's kind of like grace. It's kind of like how in our world, the world I want to live in, you give grace to people that might not deserve it. That's why grace works. You don't have grace on condition. Oh, I'll give you grace because you're on my side of the fence. No, you do it across the board because you practice that grace, you practice that due process, you practice that fairness, whether you like someone or agree with them, either politically or however. And in this world, whether it's Justin Baldoni, whether it's Kilmar Albrego Garcia, whether it's Mahmoud Khalil, regardless of who it is, if you are existing on this soil in this country, these are the rules. You get a fair trial. You get due process. You figure it the F out in court. Now, as we're seeing that be applied politically, we're seeing it in entertainment news. And my channel will continue to discover and discuss how to have that truthful conversation, even if it triggers people and whatnot. So I'm just saying that because not everyone who listens to the entertainment news likes the politics. I understand. But just so you know, we're going to fight for that due process, regardless if your name's Baldoni or a different name. That's what you can expect from my channel. More to come this afternoon. This was a breaking news update. Judge dismisses, but it ain't over yet. We'll see you this afternoon on The Rush.